Our senior leadership was better this year than ever before, and I think that really made a big difference when we got into playoffs.
I'll never forget this team. I mean, it was a great experience, and I know I'll never have a team like this one. We're really close. I mean, we're good friends both on and off the field, and I think that helps. I know we're going to be friends for life probably because of this season.
So the stage was set. The McDowell Lady Trojans, with a perfect 25-0 record, 199 goals and 19 shutouts to their credit, would face the Westchester Henderson Warriors, a team that recorded 22 wins against only 2 defeats and 2 ties.
Just a remarkable season by the McDowell girls, 25 victories and only 1 defeat. They finished ranked 20th in the final Umbro poll. Let's take a look now at the boys' team of Coach Lee Gunther. In only his 2nd season at the helm, Coach Gunther guided his team to 16 victories in 20 regular season games. The boys' team was definitely keeping pace with the girls' team, and it seemed quite possible that the McDowell Trojans could be represented by 2 teams in the state finals.
The 2 biggest things were defending titles that we had and building the team unity.
I'm looking at the goalie's looking right into my eyes, and I'm just thinking I'm going to put the ball in the back of the net.
Seeing the nine buses of students down there in the stands, that was just amazing.
The feeling on the bench was, let's win this thing as soon as possible. That was probably some of the worst weather I've ever experienced.
I mean, you have to give us credit. We did do an awful lot to get that far.
They know, now, they know 10 years from now, they have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of.
The McDowell Trojans stormed through the regular season with 16 victories against only 2 defeats and 2 ties, while the goaltending tandem of Brian Yoakum and Graham Rudolph held their opponents to 15 goals through those games. The McDowell Trojans dented the opponent's net 110 times. Throughout the entire season, McDowell defeated arch rival Cathedral Prep twice, including once for the District 10 championship.
Every Metro and District title that McDowell has for boys soccer, I've been involved with either as a player or as a coach. And I hadn't really thought about that, but as time progresses on, it meant a lot more to me personally, but I know it meant a lot to the kids because they didn't, we could win Metro, but if we didn't win the district this year, we would have gone away with that empty feeling like we did last year.
Prep's always a good side. They have good coaches, and last year I remember we beat them in Metro, but we fell short in D10, so it was a little revenge for us seniors to kind of get what we thought we deserved.
As long as I've been in Mill Creek, I've been growing up around the Mill Creek system in McDowell, and I've been watching my older friends and people just play and beat in Prep and lose to Prep, and it was my turn now.
The first round of interdistrict play began November 8th when the McDowell Trojans would host North Allegheny at Erie Veterans Stadium. This victory Lee Gunther would call one of the biggest of the season for McDowell.
Because it was the first interdistrict win. It was the first time in the history of AAA soccer in Erie that a boys team had ever advanced. We could have dropped the next game, and our season would have technically been complete because we'd done something no one else had done. But I think the kids realized during that game that they deserved to be where they were headed. They deserved to be playing with the top teams in the state at that point. And it was kind of funny with the weather. Everybody was saying, well, the only reason McDowell, the Erie team, did it was because of the weather helped them so much in that. And I myself and all my staff and the kids felt that every team we matched up against in the west side, if we would have played them in ideal conditions, we probably still would have beat them.
They were a pretty good team, and I mean, we were very excited to beat them because we knew Pittsburgh team was, we played club ball with all the Pittsburgh players, and we know they're the teams to beat in Pennsylvania.
The 2-1 win over North Allegheny vaulted the McDowell Trojans into the second round of the playoffs 3 days later, as they would travel to North Allegheny High School in Wexford, PA, to take on Fox Chapel. The Trojans, already winners of 19 previous games, would run into 2 tough roadblocks in this game. First of all, a very good Fox's team. Second of all, very tough weather, especially in the second half.
It was difficult because, we had to face the wind and the ice and the snow and just the temperatures itself. We played in some 20 and 30-degree weather. It was tough, but I think all our hard work in the preseason paid off because we were able to stay with it and just come up with the W, and that's what counts.
Goalkeeper Brian Yoakum would come up with a big save early on to keep the Trojans in it. The Trojans would fail on a good scoring opportunity with this indirect kick that hit a wall of Fox Chapel Foxes. And Fox Chapel tried to keep things close as they put offensive pressure on Yoakum all day long. McDowell appeared to have the first goal of the game, but the officials' call kept the score tied at 0. 26 seconds into quarter number 3, Brian Yoakum would get hurt on this play. A shot from the close side that went to the far post. Yoakum hits his head on the post and would be replaced by Graham Rudolph. Fox Chapel would lead the game 1-0.
Another player, not the player that headed it in, I jumped up and we collided actually. I was jumping backwards and he knocked into me and I hit my head on the post. I really don't know. I guess I was sort of high up in the air and I fell down, and I didn't have any clue what happened at the time until I think I snapped out of it and I understood what happened, and I developed a fairly nice sized bump on the back of my head. Had to come out for a while.
Rudolph would keep the Trojans in the game with 2 big saves. As you can see, it started to rain even harder in quarter number 3 as McDowell kept the offensive pressure on the Foxes. Then with 11:21 remaining in quarter number 3, the officials cleared the field in hopes that the weather would diminish just a bit to resume play. Good thing for the Trojans, with 9:48 remaining in the third quarter, Damon Finazzo would score the Trojans' first goal and tie the game at 1. Fox Chapel would answer back just 14 seconds later as Quentin Brown would take it right down on goaltender Rudolph and put it past him for a 2-1 Fox Chapel lead. At the 14:17 mark of the third quarter, Pat Fox would tie the score at 2 for McDowell. McDowell and Fox Chapel would next battle through the snow the entire fourth quarter. The Trojans nearly taking the lead on this shot from 35 yards out. Fox Chapel nearly took the lead in the fourth quarter with this shot, but a great save by the McDowell Trojans kept the score knotted at 2. Fox Chapel would keep the offensive pressure on in the overtime sessions. 2 10-minute and 2 5-minute periods were played with nobody scoring. That sent the game into a shootout. And by this time, Mother Nature had increased her wrath on the field at North Allegheny High School, making the conditions almost unbearable to play in.
As the season went on, it got colder and colder and colder, and some of those games at the end there, I mean, I heard that we had 50 to 60 mile per hour winds, and I mean, a lot of times you really don't know what the ball is doing. You have to kind of step back, wait for the player to make his move, for the ball to make its move, and then you have to try to jump in there and catch the ball or whatever needs to be done. Yeah, it was difficult situations out there, especially in Fox Chapel game.
McDowell would stop the first Fox Chapel shot in the shootout. Jeff Duncombe answered for McDowell for a 1-0 lead. The second Fox Chapel shooter had his shot go off the post. McDowell retaining a 1-0 lead. Pat Fox will be next for McDowell. A save by Fox Chapel kept the score 1-0 McDowell. Fox Chapel's third shooter would score, tying the game at 1. Dave Cardo is next for McDowell. His shot found the back of the net and a 2-1 McDowell lead. The fourth Fox Chapel shooter hit the post as well. The score remaining McDowell 2, Fox Chapel 1 in the shootout. Aaron Pence was the next shooter for McDowell. His shot was stopped and the score remained 2-1 McDowell. The last shooter for Fox Chapel found the back of the net, and the shootout was tied at 2 goals apiece. That set the stage for McDowell's Jack Laver.
For McDowell, Jack Laver. 3-2. McDowell wins the penalty kick, and that makes the final score 3-2 in favor of McDowell.
So on a day when a frozen field, swirling snow, and 20-degree temperatures took center stage, junior Jack Laver will be remembered more for his soft touch than anything else.
We got in a huddle, and the coach asked who wanted to shoot, who felt they had confidence to put the ball in the back of the net, and I stepped up and I said I want to take the kick. I want to be the last shooter if it comes down to that.
Jack, throughout the season, had become the guy known as I can kick the ball harder and farther and higher than anybody else on the team. And right before it was his turn to kick, I walked up to him and I said, Jack, if there's ever been a point for you in this season for you to listen to what I have to say, please let it be now. And he's like, what's that, coach? And I said, please just hit a nice soft shot to one of the posts. And he said, okay, I will. And then he stepped up and did it.
I can't even hear the stands or the people or anything. I'm looking at the goalie. Goalie's looking right into my eyes, and I'm just thinking I'm going to put the ball in the back of the net, and I'm going to take this team to the States and where we belong.
The weather during the Fox Chapel game was the worst that the McDowell Trojans had seen all season long. The combination of wind, rain, and snow would hamper play throughout the evening.
Words can't express how proud I was of those guys, the way they hung in, because going into the game, Fox Chapel was supposedly the team that was going to win it all in the States. They could have packed up their bags when Fox Chapel scored on us, and they didn't. They dug in. The kids on the bench, they were continually letting me know that even though they were all bundled up nice and warm, that if they needed to go on to give a couple of the starters a couple minutes rest or a chance to get warm, they were more than willing to strip down. The atmosphere was so positive, even though the environment outside and surrounding us was so negative with the weather factors and the attitudes from the Fox Chapel personnel.
I had to leave, I think, in the third quarter because I was suffering from some mild hypothermia. So I had to go into the locker room for, I think, about the whole fourth quarter. And I doused myself with hot water until I got feeling back. And my vision was blurred, and that came back too. So I went back out to the field, and we went into overtime. So I suited up again and played the overtime periods.
Halfway through the quarter, I was, I'm looking for Mitch to tell me where he is and what's going on, because he was a very crucial part to our defense this year. And Mitch said that he had to stay in and get warm, and then we got into the fourth quarter, and it looked more and more like we were going to overtime, and all of a sudden Ryan comes walking out of the locker room bigger than life saying, Coach, I'm ready to go back on. And there's a lot of discussion about it, because I will never put a game in front of a kid's health ever. And for Ryan to step on, and that was like a true senior leadership type atmosphere for him.
There were polls out that Fox Chapel was supposed to be ranked #1 in the state, and to beat a #1 ranked team in the state was just Fox Chapel, Pittsburgh team. I mean, they're fantastic, and we took it to them.
Next up for the McDowell Trojans, the Western Finals to be held once again at North Allegheny High School. Their opponent this time, Lock Haven.
I thought we were looking too far ahead in the beginning of that game. We were thinking this was going to be an easy game, and we had to calm each other down a little bit, and that's what I thought helped most. A lot of the captains took charge. A lot of guys in the back helped calm down everyone else. And I think we got our mind set that we had to beat this team first in order to go to the finals, and we did it.
The Trojans started off very well against the Bobcats in this game. Kyle Cerami and Damon Finazzo hooking up for the first goal of the game, just 8 minutes and 8 seconds into quarter #1. Still in the first quarter at the 12:57 mark, one of the Lock Haven players put the ball into his own net. McDowell taking a 2-0 lead.
We played a long ball down the wing, and their wing defender went up to, he was, in my eyes, he was trying to head it out of bounds, and he caught it with the back part of his head, and it ended up hitting it back towards their goal. And at that point, their keeper was coming out because it looked like he was going to play the ball, and then he realized he was